And welcome to Effective Evolution. And today we're exploring Europa, and this would be PIA 26407. And we're incorporating some tinting techniques as well as the other transformation gadgets or whatnot. And hopefully, you'll find us very astonishing or whatnot. And you'll also notice that there is a type of grid, and this would be on account of the fact that when Cassini was exploring Enceladus, which is a moon of Saturn as well, that it noticed some areas of thermal vents, i.e., where there are some areas of hot heat transfer or whatnot. And they've used this grid, and you'll see it. They're in two places, at the north side and the south side as well of Europa. And this would be, if you were to imagine that there would be vents on Europa, and you put these grids in the same place that they used to explore the thermal vents on Enceladus, what would be the results? So they've actually plotted this this grid on Europa, and of course you're also up to date with the fact that Clipper is on its way to explore Europa, and that will be very interesting as well. And in addition to that, we'll be looking at some areas. Now you might even say, well, what is this? Is this in fact the the design of structures that are under the ice here? Am I looking at areas where there is civilization under the ice of Europa? And of course, you'll have to come up with some ideas on that, but it's all in the venture, of course. And with regards to the other ideas now, you'll probably wonder what would be on the surface of Europa, and there do indeed seem to be streaks of marks, and it seems like it's some type of gouge over the ice surface of Europa. But with the transformation gadgets, we'll come up with some ideas, and hopefully you'll find us very interesting, and there are lots of implications to be drawn. Please enjoy. Thank you for your time. On with this particular panorama of Europa, we'll experiment with some of the transformation gadgets, and using the exposure tool we can bring out some very interesting structures. And if we rotate it around a bit, you get to this type of panorama. And we are interested in this area here. Now, is this a structure? Just notice the symmetry, designs, patterns, the architecture. Is this some type of civilization under the ice of Europa that we're looking at right now? And is this a liquid type of substance under the ice that we're looking at right now? It's one area here. Is Europa, specifically PIA 26105. And as mentioned, these linear hash marks are the grid patterns that were used by the Cassini spacecraft when it explored Enceladus of the Saturnian system, and they would denote areas of thermal vents on Enceladus. And the idea then would be to place that grid onto Europa with regards to where similar thermal vents may be. Now, hopefully, that makes some sense to you. Either that or it's just something to camouflage this particular panorama of Europa. And when you first look at Europa, you'll notice all of these intricate designs, which are in fact, it looks like various types of scratches or cracks on the ice surface of Europa. And of course, remember that Clipper is on its way to Europa right now, so hopefully we'll have some more detail on that. And you'll probably notice some interesting designs in these areas here. And specifically, just want to get this zoomed in on a bit. But you'll notice areas here, also on this side here and here. And if you give it some time, you'll probably ask yourself, are these structures under the ice? And if we rotate it a bit, you could probably notice various designs here. Some other snapshots of Europa would look like. And we're looking at some pics taken around 2014 and 2016. And bear in mind, there are also some other panoramas, such as PIA 21444, that were taken by the Galileo mission to Jupiter. And some of these shots are also taken by the Cassini mission that went to Saturn. Now, if we were to have a gander at these angles of Europa, you'll notice that there are some very interesting concepts to be drawn here. And for example, if we just implement the transformation controls, and we apply a filter to it to bring out various areas of shadowy detail, you'll get something like this. Now, you may or may not be able to discern other structures in here. And the question is, no matter how you look at it, is are we looking at some structures that are under the ice here? I.e., maybe in some type of liquid. And mind you, there might be cracks above it, as you'd expect, but is the area underneath here under liquid, and are these structures in that liquid media? And similarly, if we were to look at this particular pic, and apply some of the probing instruments. You might be able to deter more of the same here. Structures all over the place. And are we looking through the ice here? This is the similar scenario with PIA 26105 with the grid patterns and all. And remember, of course, that the Cassini mission did notice some hotspots on enceladus, i.e. plumes of vapor rising from the surface. So that grid, just to reiterate, is to apply the positioning of those grids on enceladus onto Europa. And if there are areas of thermal heat emission, as you'd expect, maybe that grid will help to make things more definitive. Remember also that the Clipper mission has a system called the e-THEMIS, or the Europa Thermal Emission Imaging System, which will have a lot more detail, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some further ideas on the possibility of life on Europa and whatnot. And you can see various areas of shadows and brightness and symmetry all over the place, really. We make a note of some of these areas. We would indicate areas such as here, which we just went over, and also areas in here, and areas in here as well, also in here, and around here. Now, are we possibly looking through the ice right now, looking into the liquid undersurface? And we'll rotate this around a bit more. Now, we were just on this area here, noting the structure-like architecture, and zooming in a bit more, you can see that there is some very interesting architecture here. And just in the midsection, you can probably see structures there as well. And of course, these designs, linear patterns in the ice surface, as it appears, seems to be over the structures that are below. And if we use some transformation tools, playing around with the brightness or whatnot, you can get some more detail. But you'll probably notice that things start to pop after a while, as usual. And are we looking at planned architecture under the surface of Europa here. Or is that made naturally and just part of the surface? Very interesting questions. On this side as well, there seems to be some structures here. This side too. Definitely some intricate designs here, as opposed to random patterns. Symmetry, the linear patterns, the creative designs. And these other pics would be a photo of Europa that's been super expanded on the Hubble image, and it was created with NASA's Galileo mission to Jupiter, and we're looking at plumes in the same spot. And this would be 2014, this would be 2016. And these plumes would be, if you want to call it circumstantial evidence, that's fine, but it might be thoughts to substantiate the fact that there is water or some liquid venting from Europa as well. And of course, Enceladus was also noted to have plumes as well. And it's estimated that the plume on the right here should be at about 100 kilometers above Europa's frozen surface, and this one on the other side should be about 50 kilometers above the surface. Interesting facts and figures, of course. But just notice the various designs all over the place. And is it possible that we are looking at structures here, maybe in a semi-frozen and or liquid environment that might be on the other side of the ice, on another type of surface on Europa in a liquid medium? And these plumes would definitely be hints as to there being a liquid reservoir on Europa that could in fact encourage life forms. Relating a bit with the contrast and brightness tool, we get this type of view. Now notice that this is the area that we just explored a bit a few minutes ago, and you can notice that there is some more detail here. You can notice the elevation. Try to ignore the quote grid marks, which were supposedly for demarking thermal vents on Europa that was similarly used for Enceladus with the Cassini spacecraft. But could you not notice some very intricate structures here? The linear patterns seems to be rising up off of the surface. Are we looking at a civilization here? And is this in fact liquid under the surface of Europa that we're having a gander through? Similarly, in this area here, in the center, you can notice there is intricate designs here. Symmetry, elevation, they all seem to be intertwined, interconnected. And same with this part, which seems to have the sun shining off of the surface here a bit more than the other parts. And this is just with the contrast brightness manipulation, of course. Just notice these linear patterns here, if they are in fact on the surface of the ice material on Europa. Are we actually seeing through the ice here? And on this side as well, seems to be structures all over the place. There's definitely intricate patterns on Europa. And of course, to reiterate the question, are we looking under the surface of Europa here? And are these the architecture of another worldly civilization? And of course, the Clipper vehicle will be exploring Europa sooner than later, and we will have some more detail with that, of course. The dodge tool, that is to bring out light areas, we get this, and let's make a note of the detail that we can find. Pay attention to the levels, linear patterns with elevation. And is this under the ice? Is this the view that we're seeing, looking right through the ice to the material below the surface? And now we're going to the shadow enhancement tool, that is the burn tool, which will bring out the darker areas. And we get this scenario, which will be where the sun is brightest on this side of Europa. Just notice the shadows and the intricate patterns and structures all over the place here. Astonishing designs. And with the infrared tool, we get this. Probably notice some more intricate designs in here. What is some type of vehicular roads or highway that are over this surface or over the undersurface of Europa with the ice surface on top. You're welcome to explore further, of course. Up then, after going over this panorama of Europa, you must admit that there are certain ideas that can be drawn. And is there, in fact, the indication of structures under the ice of Europa? I.e., can you see civilization there with the various areas that we've explored with the usual techniques or whatnot? And also the ice surface itself, what is that made of? And what type of ice is it? Is it nitrogen ice? Is it some new type of ice? Is it oxygen ice as well? And is that liquid under the surface? And hopefully, Clipper will give us some more ideas to come up with regards to exploring Europa. And until next time, thank you for your time investment in effective evolution. Thank you for your time.